what is VLAN? Virtual Local Area Network. We call it VLAN. Means virtual. Virtually you are creating local area network which is not exist physically. I would say in another word, logically you are dividing your switch in many virtual switches. By default, physically it look like a one switch, but logically you are dividing your switch in many switches. This is called VLAN, Virtual Local Area Network. As we know, by default, every switch has 5 VLAN. If I go to any switch, let me take a switch from here. Let me take this one and let me start. And also let me start a switch from here as well. So by default, you will find 5 VLAN. All the ports are parked by default in VLAN 1. Those 5 VLAN, you cannot delete them, you cannot modify them. But VLAN 1, which is the default VLAN, name is also default. Every interface of the switch, so it means by default every switch has one broadcast domain because all the ports belong to one VLAN. And that's what we want to create a logical switches inside one switch, which is called VLAN. So basically, how many VLAN we can create in one switch? From 1 to 4094. These are the VLAN which we can create. We can divide a switch from 1 to 4094 logically partition. Why we need a VLAN? Let me give an example. Either analogy. I mentioned 2-3 analogy. You know, in my system, I divide my hard drive. When I buy this laptop, there were only one partition, C partition. I put all the detail, my videos, my notes, my everything in C partition because by default there was only C partition. And I thought it's okay. But what happened? My system crashed. So I reinstalled the system, reinstalled the operating system in C partition. But my everything was gone. I lost my videos, my notes, my videos, my everything, movies and everything. So what I done, I make a partition C and D, and you can see in my other laptop I created 4 partition, videos, notes, slides. So now the management is easy. All my data is in this partition, and whenever I want to go to system related stuff, I'm going to Windows C partition. So partition make thing easy, management become easy. The same thing, we make a VLAN and a switch to divide the switches in a small broadcast domain to control the switch, to make them easy, to manage them easily. Like another example is, suppose if you are teaching to any student like a metric and all those student, either any primary school students. So student, like suppose if you have 500 students, so you cannot control those 500 students in one class. How you will deliver them a lecture? Because normally student, they will shouting, they will fighting with each other. So for that purpose, you make a section A, section B, section C, and you divide those 500 students in different section. This is called VLAN, and the same thing we do here. So like my classroom, to divide them in many sections, like my hard drive to partition to make them organized. The same thing, we create a VLAN. Now coming to VLAN. Suppose if you have a big room and you want to give them to rent to someone, so you can make a partition. But how many partition you can make in a room? There will be some limit to create, yeah, because if you partition, a time will reach that there you will not be able to create more partition. The same thing is in the switch. How many partition we can make in VLAN from 1 to 4094? Now from 1 to 1005, this is called standard VLAN, and from 1006 to 4094, this is called extended VLAN. For normal switch, standard VLAN is enough. If I go to the switch and make them no, enable configuration. Okay, let me show you default VLAN. Show VLAN brief. Either is better to show you here as well, more clear in this one. So let me take a switch from here. Okay, and let me start this switch and let me show you. By default, you will find 5 VLAN. Let me quickly go there. Okay, until it's coming. So here you can see VLAN 1, VLAN 1, 0, 0, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By default, there are 5 VLAN. Let me show you here. Show VLAN brief. Name is default VLAN 1. All the interfaces park in VLAN 1. These 4 are good for nothing. Neither he nor she. It's good for nothing. Even you cannot change them, you cannot put interfaces there. If I go to VLAN 1002, he can change the name to something ABC. They say default VLAN 100 may not have its name change. So these 4 are good for nothing. It's there. It means by default in every switch you will find 5 VLAN. But in our use, VLAN 1 is the default one, and also name is also default, and all the interfaces belong to VLAN 1. Now coming to two type of VLAN which we can create in a switch. Standard VLAN. Standard VLAN means normal VLAN, which we need normally. Normal VLAN which in our company you will require from 1 to 1005. This extended VLAN may not be required in a company or an organization, but ISP internet service provider may use these extended VLAN. So let me try to create VLAN here. How to create? Just type VLAN, and here you can see it's showing me 1 to 1005, but these are the maximum VLAN which we can create. Let me try to create 12. So it's created and give them the name test. Do show VLAN brief. Yes, it's created test. Let me create extended VLAN. VLAN 1006. Can I create? No. It's given an error that VLAN creation failed to create VLAN. This is an extended VLAN which is not allowed in this VTP mode. So it means normal VLAN you can create directly, but extended VLAN you need something else in the switch, which I will show you a bit later. But anyway, up to this point, we have 5 VLAN in every switch. Switch can operate in layer 2 and switch can operate as a layer 3. There are layer 3 switches and also layer 2 switches. And also layer 3 switches is working as a layer 3 as well and as a layer 2 as well. Okay, so we create from 1002 to 1005 as the reserved VLAN, and I show you those reserved VLAN, and also VLAN 1 is by default there. Now where these VLAN are stored? Standard one. I'm talking about the standard VLAN. So standard VLAN are stored in a VLAN.dat file in flash memory. Let me show you here. Okay, I already created one VLAN. So if I say dir, you know there will be VLAN. Did I created VLAN? Okay, so I created it, should be here. There should be show flash or dir. It can be dir, should be, let me see. I cannot see any VLAN, so let me create another one. VLAN 200 exit dir, either show flash. Yeah, it's here now. You know, it automatically create VLAN file. Let me show you here. dir either show flash. It's both are the same thing. There is VLAN.dat. But if I take a new switch, you will not find VLAN.dat file there. Whenever you create a new VLAN, standard VLAN, keep in mind. Let me take a new switch to show you. There will be no VLAN. Either let me take here. I will go both places, because if I click and let me go to this switch, you will not find VLAN.dat file there. So standard VLAN are stored in flash memory with VLAN.dat file. Yeah, this is a fresh switch. dir, there is no VLAN. Look at, only you bridge something and this one in startup configuration and NVRAM. Let me create extended VLAN. VLAN 1007. Do you think it will create a VLAN.dat file? No. There is no VLAN.dat file, because extended VLAN are stored in running configuration. Let me show running. You will find extended VLAN here 1007. Here is, but it's not stored in dir file. Yeah, if I create a standard, you will see dir file will be created. Sorry, VLAN.dat file. Let me create standard VLAN, suppose 2. Exit dir. Look at now, it's created. You can read them as well. More, and where is this one? Unix VLAN.dat file is showing there is a VLAN 1 and we created VLAN 2 as well. You can read the file as well. So it's clear now that there are two type of VLAN which we can create. How many VLAN we can create? 4094. From 1 to 1005 is called standard VLAN, and from 1006 to 4094 is extended VLAN. Normally we need the standard VLAN, which is stored in VLAN.dat file and flash memory, and when you want to delete, you have to delete the file as well. How we can delete? Just delete and Unix, and here is in Unix, by the way, it will be in flash memory, and VLAN.dat delete and dir is deleted now, and then properly delete this. This is the way to delete the VLAN. Analogy I already told you. Advantages I already to solve broadcast problem, reduce the size of broadcast domain, additional layer of security, segregation, management, division, logically grouping, HRS separate VLAN, sales is a separate domain, IT is separate. Every department has separate VLAN, which they cannot reach to each other until you allow them. Now coming to type of VLAN, we have a data VLAN. So whenever we are putting any user here, like normal PC, so when we connect this PC, suppose if I connect them to fast Ethernet, so now this is my data PC. So which port is connected? I need to go to, what was the port number? Yeah, 0/1. So what I will do, I will go to here, and I will put 0/1 interface as a data VLAN. Interface fast Ethernet 0/1, switch port mode access, this is data VLAN, and switch port access VLAN 1. I put this. By default, every interface is in data VLAN, which carry data, normal data like a web browsing and email and all those stuff. Then a voice. Maybe you have a voice or IP phone connected here, maybe separately, or it may be connected to your normally in real world you will find like this one. Let me take another one as well. In real world you will find them. Here is two port. Switch will be connected. Sorry, they should be connected here 0/2, and let me disconnect this cable. Either let me take an AOPC here, and this will be connected to PC to here. Normally you will find this one. Let me show you. There are two ports. This switch, so it's connected to switch, and PC is connected to here to save the port, Otherwise there is another way as well. If you connect separately, switch here. But now you will need two ports to connect. One for PC, one for voice or IP phone. But normally you will find this type of. So now this interface belongs to data as well and also voice. So voice is not enabled by default. So what I will do, I will go to this interface, exit interface fast Ethernet 0/2 switch port access VLAN 1 and switch port, sorry, VLAN 10. So VLAN 1 and switch port mode access and switch port voice VLAN. Suppose voice is different VLAN, suppose 20. Now this interface belongs, a voice is being activated on this interface. If I say show VLAN brief, so you will find this port here as well and also in VLAN 1. Let me put them in another VLAN. Interface pass Ethernet so that I can show you properly. Switch port access VLAN 10 suppose. Exit show VLAN brief. So this port is showing in two places. You haven't to be confused, because I say that this port is carrying data and voice both. So 0/2 belong to data VLAN as well and also is belong to voice VLAN as well. So by default voice is not enabled. You have to enable them, and the command I use switch port where I put them to show you. This one, switch port voice VLAN. So clear. So we have a data VLAN, voice VLAN for voice or IP traffic, private VLAN. We will discuss private VLAN, which is coming in your course, maybe in next lecture. Then management VLAN. Management VLAN means suppose if you want to configure this switch, because you cannot assign IP to layer 2 switch interfaces. So what you will do, how you will configure this switch? You cannot go to data center every time to connect console cable. You need to configure SSH, Telnet, HTTP to configure this switch. So for that purpose, what you can do, let me show you here is a bit clear. Let me connect these two. So what you can do, you can configure SSH, Telnet, whatever you want. But for that purpose, I will use VLAN 1. You can use any interface, any VLAN as a management. And I will assign IP address, suppose 1.1.1, 255.0.0, no shutdown. Now I will configure Telnet line VTY 024, transport input all, and login, password 123, and login. Now I configure Telnet. But from switch 2 to access them, also I need to configure VLAN here as a management. IP address 1.1.2 suppose, and 255.0.0, no shutdown. No need to configure here. Let me type Telnet here. Telnet 1.1.1. Now we'll access switch 1. How I access the switch? I did not assign any IP to any interfaces. Show IP interface brief, because these are layer 2 interfaces. How I can assign IP to these interfaces? So for that purpose, I need a VLAN to assign it IP so that I can access through Telnet, through SSH to HTTP, whatever method we are using for management. So now this VLAN play the role of management. This is called management VLAN. Extended VLAN, I already told you, it require a VTP version 3. There was standard VLAN and extended VLAN. Native VLAN, by default, there is a VLAN, native VLAN. If I configure interface E0/0 switch port mode trunk encapsulation.1q, I need to show you show interface trunk. Okay, I'm which interface I'm connected. Let me see. Yeah, 0. So let me go to this one as well. Okay, I thought this is, yeah, switch 1 and switch 2 interface E0/0 switch port trunk encapsulation.1q switch port mode trunk. Okay, show interface trunk. Yeah, now it's showing. Native VLAN. By default, native VLAN is 1. What is native VLAN? Native VLAN means if I am sending a traffic, okay, and there is no tag on that traffic, so untagged traffic will be sent to native VLAN. Some other time I will explain you better from the Wireshark as well. If I'm sending a traffic without tagging, for which belong to not a VLAN 2, not a VLAN 3, 4, and so on. So what they will do, switch will send those traffic to native VLAN. It's like a box where you put those letters which there is no address. Suppose in Royal Mail you are receiving many letters in Christmas especially, and there is no tag, no address on the envelope. So what you will do, you will put them in a box, where a big box, because you don't know the source and the destination, no source address, no destination. So this type of letter you will put them in a native VLAN. So this is called native VLAN. These are the types. Some VLAN database, I already told you, they are storing VLAN and a VLAN.dat file in flash memory, and I show you, and you can use a more command to read them as well. Normal VLAN which we create from 1 to 1005, and it's stored in memory. Okay, and extended VLAN, I already told you, 10.0.6.2.40.94, mainly used by service provider, internet service provider, large organization they can use, but it require VTP transparent mode or VTP version 3 to create them, because it will give an error. Then voice VLAN, which is not enabled by default. Whenever you need a voice traffic, you have to enable them, and the command was switch port voice VLAN, and it will automatically create them. How to create a VLAN? Definitely VLAN 10, name them, you can rename them, you can remove them, you show VLAN brief to see. You can see the database by show flash or dir or show Unix, whatever. Okay, you can create VLAN and name them anything. You can put any interface by command switch port voice VLAN and switch port access VLAN. Okay, and you can see the detail of interfaces by this way. And why we need a VLAN? To segregate the traffic, to divide the traffic, to create a small broadcast, to divide a big class in a small class, to divide a big room in a small partition, to utilize them better, to manage them easy. For that purpose we creating VLAN.